Welcome back to Morning Joe. It's going to be a cold day in New York City and up and down the East Coast. Wind chill in the teens, they said.
It's horrible.
In the teens. So Joe was writing this morning in the Washington Post, Tuesday's election proves it. American politics are a disaster. Joe writes, it might be comforting to believe that Tuesday's election can be explained as a political primal scream. Some may even conclude that a Democratic sweep of next year's midterms will follow along with the speedy impeachment of Trump. Unfortunately, that pipe dream ignores the more profound meaning of this week's election results. The shellacking Republicans took proves again just how unmoored American politics has become in the 21st century. Even if Tuesday's election begins the long process of removing the president from office, Americans will be left with the same corrosive system that led voters to take a chance on Trump. The only way to escape that cycle is to break apart the hyper-partisan two-party duopoly that has kept Washington too divided, too dysfunctional, too directionless for too long. This has been a pipe dream for many years, as you know, Nicole, this idea of a third party. The system's broken, we're going to run a third party. It's never worked with a candidate who has a chance to win, really. Is it different this time? Is it getting different?
You know, I spent the last weekend out with the Trump voters, the Democrats who had voted for Trump in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and they're still enthusiastic about him. But as much as they love him, you look at the 67% of the country that's just appalled by him and repelled by him. And I do think, I've never been a fan, I've never been a proponent, I've never been a believer that a third party could do anything other than serve as a spoiler for the party with whom he or she is most aligned. But I do think we're in this moment. Mike and I were talking about the book The Unwinding by George Packer. It came out a few years ago, and it was sort of about how we're unraveling. Well, we're unraveled. We are unwound. I mean, the book needs to be updated and called Unwound. And so I think as we sort of are all on our knees, there is an openness to something different, but it would have to be built around competence, not ideology. I think part of what repels people is this tribalism we've been talking about, and sort of the depraved, defending of the indefensible because they're in your tribe. So I think a third-party movement would have to be based around that which is competent, that which is not ideological, and that which is grassroots.
You know what?
Well, we saw that.
In every other area of our life, we have more choices than ever before. We grew up with 6 TV channels. There used to be 2 peanut butters, another 100. This is the only thing.
But that's not a good thing either.
Okay.
Stand there for like an hour.
But this is the only area. This is the only area in modern Western civilization that has not evolved to kind of more choices. We still live in this A or B world, and we are not in an A or B world. So I don't have the prescription, but it does not mirror who we are anymore, which is just take one or take the other and go home.
But in New York, Syracuse, the 5th largest city, elected a mayor on Tuesday that did not come from a major party, who ran as an independent with 54% of the vote. As a matter of fact, he came from a prominent Republican family, but the fact that he was able to get 54% of the vote in a Democratic city and now goes in as an independent does show, I think, with everything that just Nicole laid out, especially on the grassroots level with the right candidate, people are open to it. So we are starting to see a little bit of a break here and there.
And John, if you look at just last year, Donald Trump's not really a Republican. He was an independent candidate who ran as a Republican. Bernie Sanders isn't really a Democrat. In fact, he's not a Democrat. He's an independent. That spirit is there. The question is, can you run without the party apparatus and win on a national level?
Yeah, the answer is no to that question. And part of the thing is, I mean, to Donnie's point, is that we don't have a free market in politics. One of the things that I for a long time was a big advocate of the notion that somehow we could get an independent presidential candidate at least, and that there could be a third party or an independent movement. The reality is that the parties have such a vice-like grip over basic fundamental infrastructure, things like ballot access. So the people who've tried to go around and start this movement realize you take millions of dollars, you go state by state, and the parties are profoundly corrupt, and they have so much control over how you get over keeping those a third party out that it's an almost insuperable kind of barrier to that happening, even though it's clear that there's a huge appetite for something different. I think the point about Trump is that the parties as currently constituted are in a period of, especially the Republican Party, are in a period of terminal breakdown. And so you're more likely to see the parties kind of dissolve and rebuild themselves rather than like a third alternative. But the Democratic and Republican parties could look very different 20 years from now than they look today.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.